everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Julian.
I'm Madeline.
And I'm Emilio. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, if it still exists, for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. While we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, forgoing sleep, for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we continue our current cycle of movies featuring winners of the Best Supporting Actor or Actress Oscars with a category we call Suggestion Box, where one of us elects a film for the group to discuss. At least one of us will be seeing this movie for the first time, and differing opinions may or may not be held among us.
And that film, today, we are going to be discussing LA Confidential from 1997, directed by Curtis Hanson.
And this week, we are delighted to have back a guest whose love for movies is matched and maybe even surpassed by his unreal skills as a musician. His band Stiletto is one of the top groups out there to play private events here in the tri-state area and beyond, as I know you all travel when the gig calls for it. You might also see him dueling with other piano players around the city. He is really one of the best guys out there doing it. On a personal note, I also really respect and admire this guy for being a proud partner and dad. I know you had a career once in law, but I think you'd agree that when it comes to being a musician, you really are a lifer. He's back to bring this deep appreciation for the arts to our discussion of movies. Matt Friedman, thank you for joining us again.
Always a pleasure. So glad to be back for what may be one of my top 3 all-time favorite films.
Boom.
Hooray. Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Before we get into this bit, though, we should clarify that this is a cycle all about supporting performers.
Oh, that's right.
And
yes.
the person who we are using in this movie to justify including it is Kim Basinger, who won the Best Supporting Actress trophy for that year. I'm sure we'll get into discussion about what exactly that win means, all our various thoughts on it, but got quite a bit to do before we get there.
That's true. And the first thing we should say is really clarify, because while there's a fair amount of police work, unsavory characters, living, and death in LA Confidential, it is not to be confused with To Live and Die in LA,
Yeah.
which is
True.
William Friedkin's film from 1985, stars William Peterson and Willem Dafoe in an early baddie role. Not a huge hit when it came out, but it's very well received now. I think it kind of is like the opposite coast younger cousin of the French Connection.
And songs by Wang Chung.
That's
All right.
Yeah, that's like from the era, like the post-Exorcist era of Friedkin, where he's more of a niche name.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in years, but I remember really liking this movie when I saw it. They are both good movies, but To Live and Die in LA is not LA Confidential.
It's true.
Yes, and it is also not LA Noir, which is a video game that came out in 2011. And, you know, I haven't played it, but by, you know, some of the surface level details, I mean, it seems like it cuts pretty close to LA Confidential because it's set, you know, in a time pretty close together. And it also has to do with policing in LA. Also, it has to do with drug trafficking and things of that sort. Certainly not to be confused with.
I think noir as a genre seems like it would lend itself quite well to a video game.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah.
This is also noir spelled with an E at the end. Noir.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
Very fancy.
Yeah, we'll also say this is not to be confused with La Chimera, which was one of Dougie's favorite films of the last couple of years. So it came out in 2023, starring Josh O'Connor of Challengers as an archaeologist grave robber. Really, really excellent film. I highly recommend.
I've seen that. I can attest it's a great movie.
Oh, and if I can get in on this,
Please do.
Also not to be confused with the very poor John Carpenter sequel, Escape from L.A., the sequel to Escape from New York. Yes, Kurt Russell is back, and he is amazing in it. He's great. It actually does involve police work.
Yeah,
it also
true.
does
It does.
involve drug trafficking.
That is true.
Believe it or not, all those things are in there. And also involves plastic surgery to make people
Yes.
look
That's
like
true.
all of those things are in
Dude,
it.
you're so right.
But it's just not very good. I'm sorry.
yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
not.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, Escape from LA has kind of a campy aspect to it, I think,
Yes.
that can make
Yeah.
it fun, but definitely not like as high as Escape from New York.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would also say that LA Confidential is not to be confused with the film Spencer Confidential,
Ah, yeah.
which was the film that was released in 2020. It was a Netflix film. It stars Mark Wahlberg, Winston Duke, Alan Arkin.
Okay.
By the sound of it, I think that the title is playing a little bit with LA Confidential's themes of police corruption. And I think some of the cachet that I think LA Confidential has developed over the years. I have heard, though, in terms of quality, LA Confidential, this is not. So do not confuse.
Few movies are.
Yes,
You
that's
know
true.
who else makes a small appearance in that film?
Who?
So I've heard. Mark Maron.
That's
really?
why you're
Yeah.
familiar
Okay.
with it.
I haven't seen the movie, but I'm an avid listener to his podcast, so that's how I
Oh,
know
yes.
that.
We
Interesting.
know.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
that's
I
very
think
true.
he was friends, or maybe still is friends with the director of that movie, Peter Berg.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Los Angeles and noir are two things that often go together in movies. And LA Confidential, though the title does not sound similar, it is also not to be confused with Under the Silver Lake,
Yeah.
which is a more surreal take on the whole genre of LA noir, which is not the individual video game. I have yet to see this movie. I've heard it's polarizing, but I sense that I would be on the pole that is in favor of this movie. from what I've
I
heard.
have seen this movie. Maybe. I fell asleep. So, take from that what you will.
I remember liking it when I saw it. It
Yeah.
was kind of cool. It has a very cool vibe.
I loved It
Yeah.
Follows, which is from the same director.
Got it. Okay.
I can go one more.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it to us, man.
Not to be confused with the movie L.A. Story, Steve Martin and
Yeah.
Victoria Tennant.
Yeah.
Victoria Tennant, if I may be so bold, ruins every movie she's in, brings it down 2 stars all by herself every
wow.
time. She does the same thing to this film, even a tour de force performance by Sarah Jessica Parker as Sandy, capital S-A and capital D, small e, capital E with a star at the end, could not save this film from Victoria Tennant's, I don't know what it is, a black hole of I don't know what it is, but it actually has some really great depictions of LA's quirkiness, its high side, its underbelly, its farcical elements. No, not to be confused.
Yes.
Yes,
that is
got
true.
it.
And it's not the first time we've talked an LA kind of noir film, because we talked Inherent Vice
Yeah.
as a very early conversation, which takes place in the 70s, I believe.
Yeah,
Late
yeah.
60s,
Yeah,
early
yeah.
70s. So it's a couple decades after the setting of this film.
That's true. Please do not confuse any of these aforementioned films with the film that we're talking about now, LA Confidential.
Yes.
Last year, Matt, we were on a gig and we started talking, and I approached you about coming on to talk on this podcast. You gave me a whole list of movies that you said that you loved and that you knew really well. We whittled it down to 2, and one of them we talked about last year, which was Unbreakable.
Yes.
Great conversation, really fun movie. Listeners, if you haven't checked it out, please do so. But the other one that was on that list was this one that we're going to talk about now, LA Confidential. So I'm curious, Matt, you're suggesting this movie to us. Like we said, this is a suggestion box episode. Could you tell us a little bit about why this movie is so resonant with you?
Well, I can't really explain it other than, when I saw it in the theater, you had these great, fairly unknown actors in it who really, to me, gave tour de force performances. It's so, tightly scripted, beautifully shot. Every inch of the screen is luscious in how it's lit, and everything is just
Yeah.
really well. The score is Jerry Goldsmith, who, if you're not
classic.
going to have Spielberg, have Goldsmith. He will get it right.
John Williams, right? Yeah.
Right. He really evokes the era that you're filming perfectly, whether it's sci-fi or, 50s noir or whatever this is. It's just, he gets it right. Interestingly enough, and I know you guys are talking about your best supporting here, the one weakness I thought the film had was Kim Basinger.
We're
I'm
gonna
sure we'll get to
we'll
that.
talk about that, I think.
Yes, I thought she was fine. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm with you. We're going to definitely come back to that for sure.
But yes, the film has resonated with me ever since. And I think I told you guys earlier, if it's 3:00 in the morning, I'm about to go to sleep, I'm about to flip through the channels for that one last time before I turn the TV set off. And LA Confidential happens to be on, it's 2 minutes in. I know I'm up till 6:00 because I'm not turning it off because it's so watchable. You get sucked in
Yeah.
every single time.
I'm with you on that. This movie does have this tractor beam quality to it. And right away from the get-go, like you said, if it's 302, you're probably listening to Danny DeVito give that great monologue.
That's right.
There's so much in it and just completely sets you in the scene.
The way that they introduce like the three main cops, I think, is really, really well done because
Yes.
you don't
Yeah.
get that much time with either of them at the very beginning. But I just think each like short scene you get with those three just encompasses their whole vibe.
You know them all within
Yeah.
a minute or two of seeing them. You know exactly who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll describe this movie a tiny bit. I realized as I was writing it, this is a really hard movie to pin down. And
It's
Yeah.
like, I'm so glad you volunteered to write the description for this film.
It's a little long, but hopefully not too long. So I'll try to rip through it. So, LA Confidential. It's Christmas. I believe it's 1952 in the City of Angels, Los Angeles, the fast-growing metropolis that offers a picture of domestic bliss and showbiz glamour to all that arrive. Threatening to tarnish this perfect image is LA's rampant organized crime run by gangster Mickey Cohen. And who but LA's finest, the LAPD, to combat Cohen's operations and keep the peace? We're introduced to three cops. There's Bud White, an ace enforcer of a cop with questionable morals, except when it comes to putting away abusers of women. There's Jack Vincennes, an opportunistic cop whose favorite part of his job has become the clout he gets being a consultant for a TV police procedural and the payoffs he receives for tipping off tabloid publisher Sid Hudgens to celebrity scoops. And then there's Ed Exley, the son of a decorated LAPD detective whose moral compass prevents him from climbing the ladder within the police ranks. This all changes when a violent riot breaks out in the police station jail and makes the papers. Exley makes the unpopular decision to testify against the policemen who beat the jailed inmates, and in turn uses this as leverage to get promoted to detective. Now, this hurts the careers of White and Vincennes, but only briefly, as Vincennes rebounds rather quickly from his reassignment, and the police captain, Dudley Smith, sees a place for White as a heavy he can use to keep crime lords eager to move into LA out of the picture, because by this point, Mickey Cohen has gone to jail. Now, that's kind of the early setup. It's really when several murders happen at a diner called the Night Owl that things really start to take off in this movie, as the investigation introduces our cops to a series of suspects, a bunch of interesting characters, a millionaire businessman who runs a high-class escort service, and one of those escorts who happens to catch the eye and affections of Bud White. Let's just say that nothing is as it seems, and these police officers who once had very established MOs begin to question everything they know about themselves and others in order to get to the bottom of the Night Owl killings.
Good job.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Yeah.
Bravo, my friend.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So you guys had not seen this movie.
Correct.
I'm curious to know if you knew anything about it before, but also just what your first impressions were watching it.
I knew almost nothing about this movie. And anytime I had seen the poster or like DVD cover, I thought it was Nicole Kidman, actually. So that's how much I knew about
Okay.
this movie before we chose to do it. Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And what did you think after having seen the
I
movie?
enjoyed it. I've watched it twice in the last week. I think the second watch was absolutely necessary because I had trouble keeping up like with a lot of the names.
Yeah, for sure.
Even like at the very end when Exley is kind of going through like, this is what happened. This was the crime. He brings in a couple of other names of guys we met briefly, but I don't think were named at the time. So I'm like, wait, who's he talking about? So I think rewatching it with subtitles on and really processing it more was very helpful for me.
Yeah. Well, this was my first time seeing the movie too, and I had heard quite a bit about it before. You know, my parents have great taste in movies too, and they had recommended this to me for a long time. Just hadn't seen it yet, but I was aware of it. But I think that one detail that I missed about this movie, you know, being the age that I am, I, after all, was born in the year that this came out. I'm a little older than the movie.
Yeah, you're
Jealous.
January baby.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. In fact, when we're recording this, it's just a few days after my actual birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah,
Jack.
happy birthday,
Happy
Julian.
birthday.
Thank you very much. 28 feels pretty good so far. But yeah, so I mean, I could not have been conscious of the fact that this movie was the introduction to American audiences of Russell Crowe and Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I became aware of movies and of those two actors, I had the illusion that they had kind of always been there. So I think that this was a movie that I really have been aware of, at least for its reputation. It's been defined by the retrospective understanding of the movie, but I always knew that it was supposed to be one of the classic neo-noirs. And now having seen it, I think I agree with you, Madeline, that the second viewing is crucial for putting all the pieces together. I think the first time I liked it, but I was mostly focusing on the plot, as what you often do in the first viewing. So I think that I thought it was good, but I didn't know I was fully on board with the general appreciation of it after the first viewing. But after the second viewing, I definitely am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like noir as a genre is something that I have a lot of blind spots in, but it's something that I'm like growing to enjoy. I watched The Long Goodbye for the first time within the last few months. And
Oh, that's great.
I loved that film, and Dougie had read the book, so he loved it even more. And so I think that this is kind of continuing to feed that for me.
Yeah. And I was just thinking too about how like the 90s were a great decade for neo-noir. And I mean, I guess with LA Confidential, the debate here is that it's like, yes, it's in color, which I've always considered to be the primary qualifier of neo-noir, but it's set back in the time of classic noir, which is not true of a lot of its contemporaries. But I also think of other movies like a trio that we talked about before on the podcast, Shallow Grave, A Simple Plan, and Fargo.
Oh, yeah.
All come out
ones.
pretty close in time to LA Confidential. But then you've also, in the 90s, you've got One False Move,
Oh, yeah.
which I still have to see. But then all the rest of these that I'm going to mention, I have seen. The Player,
Oh, I love The Player.
Heat, Lost Highway, The Big Lebowski, and The Limey, which I just recently saw.
Oh, dude. What'd you think of The Limey?
It was great.
I really liked it, too. That's a good one.
A film that also, tonally, I find very comparable to this would be The Grifters.
I still need to see
love
that.
The Grifters.
Which is
so good.
phenomenal. It is neo-noir.
Totally.
For
All the
sure.
way.
Yeah.
With three really tour de force performances
Annette
by
Bening.
Annette Bening,
She's so good in that.
Angelica Houston,
And
John
John
Cusack.
Cusack.
Basically everybody in it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And very twisty, and again, very similar in tone and style.
Yeah.
So,
I'll mention my first time seeing this. So I actually think this might be one of the first rated R movies that I've seen.
That makes sense.
I have a very good memory of watching this when it was a new release. I was probably 11 at the time. I was with my mom and dad, and my dad absolutely loved this movie. This movie's got like a lot of dad energy.
For
I feel.
sure.
And I remember watching it being really sucked into the world. There was a lot about the plot that I did not get. But I remember like the look of LA was super cool. By that point, I had read a bunch of accounts of like early Hollywood, and this movie really plays with that. And the other thing I'll say is this is a very formative plot twist for me. The scene in the kitchen, I really remember being like, oh my God, what just happened?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like when that happened, I was like, I have to sit and finish this movie.
Yeah.
And that feeling has not lost me. I feel like even when you know that it's coming, you're like, oh man, this is just so good.
I just watched the movie this week with my son. I think I told you for the first time for him to see it.
Yeah.
And when that particular scene happened, his audible gasp was so satisfying. You call this a dad movie, and I get it's kind of sad that yes, it is a dad movie, but not for that. That made me so happy that that twist came so suddenly, and it's not really out of left field, but it kind of is.
When you first watch it, it feels out of left field. And then when you watch it the second, you're like, of course it is.
But even just like his spin when he takes out the gun, I think also adds to that.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Because he like whips around.
Your son's older than my son, but one of the incredibly cool joys, I think, of listening to him gasp was probably almost reliving it yourself, right?
Yep.
You're like, you're able to live vicariously through somebody else really close
watch
to
him
you.
experience it for the first time.
Yeah, that's very
great.
cool. Yeah.
And then last time, Matt, that we had you on, we talked about Unbreakable, and we talked about how, of course, M. Night Shyamalan is known for those great twists.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there was like all these other movies from around that time too that have these famous twists, whether it's The Sixth Sense or Fight Club or The Usual Suspects. And I feel like LA Confidential doesn't often come up amongst those.
I think because the twist that happens in the movie happens in the middle and not the end.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
good
that's
point.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point.
There's still a lot of movie left to go at the point that the twist happens. Whereas when you have the M. Night twists and those other ones that you mentioned, they're always pretty much at the last minute. There's
Yeah.
still a lot left to happen, and things are now going to unfold with you knowing
Yeah.
this twist.
And I
Yeah.
think in like a mystery like this, you know that an antagonist that has not yet been revealed must be revealed.
Sure.
So the
Yeah.
twist feels a little different. You don't necessarily know who it's going to be, but you're like, it's got to be somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think through a lot of the movie, you almost don't even get a sense that there like has to be an antagonist.
Yeah.
And that's actually something, the fact that this movie operates so well purely with the characters and
Yeah.
the character development, to me, that was the big takeaway for me. It was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, like this movie almost doesn't even need that to
Yeah.
be interesting. Obviously, it needs it from a plot standpoint to really move characters through. But like all the stuff that's happening peripherally is almost as interesting in some ways. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I've thought a lot in prep for this conversation too about how LA Confidential is one of those movies, and there's a few of them out there where like about midway through it seems kind of like it's all solved.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, there's
Like Knives Out maybe would be
right. There's a moment where the mystery stops.
Yeah.
Knives Out's a good example. I think of True Detective season 1.
Mm.
It's a good
Okay.
example of that too, without spoiling exactly what happens there.
Nice.
But yeah, it's LA Confidential has a good instance of that too.
Yeah, we've already started talking a little bit about this, that Curtis Hanson, the director, he really wanted to cast his cops with relatively unknown actors so that audiences would come in with very few associations with the actors, not a lot of baggage. He really wanted the audience to fully buy in on their characters and their arcs. And though they'd been in some stuff before, both of them, Russell Crowe and Guy Pearce, were really unknown quantities for the most part for American audiences. And they've gone on to have extremely fruitful careers. And we've all seen them in really memorable roles since. So watching this movie, when I first did, I mentioned this is a formative R-rated movie for me. This was definitely my first exposure to both of them. Not for James Cromwell or for Danny DeVito, but for them.
Because you're a big fan of Babe.
I was a fan of Babe.
Me too.
Which is also one of the reasons why the moment in the kitchen feels so
I know.
Kind of
jarring.
shocking.
Yes, exactly.
The farmer would do that.
I don't know.
That-
Farmer
that-
Hoggett.
That's a movie I still haven't seen.
We should cover Babe.
We should. It's
adorable.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. But Matt, you said it up top. How exposed were you to those actors? You weren't very exposed to them, right?
It wasn't their first film here, either of them, but it was definitely early. But because I'm such a nerdling of film, I'd seen them both.
Okay.
I saw Guy Pearce and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Okay. Yeah.
I could not even recognize that it was the same person in LA Confidential. I
Hmm.
could not believe my eyes that it was
Wow.
the same person.
Not just because he's wearing glasses.
Exactly. And not just because of that. No, there's
Which
a lot of
very
other
few-
things that he's wearing in the other film.
Yes.
But just the whole performance, the whole tone of it, the accent, his accent was really,
I know.
really good.
Yeah,
Spot on.
Yeah, he's got a great
definitely.
American accent.
Better than Russell Crowe's, although Russell Crowe's still not bad. But Russell Crowe, I had seen Romper Stomper
Okay.
already, but I'd
people
also
often mention
seen Virtuosity.
I was going to ask you if you'd seen Virtuosity.
In Virtuosity, he's horrible.
He's like
And
a
I said-
cartoon character in that movie.
I
It's
said,
really
"There's
bad, in
this
the worst
guy has
way.
no future here." That's what I said after that movie. If I can't like a movie with Denzel Washington and this guy is so bad in it, I see no future. And then he did this movie, and I was again so blown away. And maybe that's part of why I love the movie so much, because I'd seen them both and did not think that either of them
Had this in
could
them. Yeah.
fill these slots. And
Yeah.
they not only did, I mean, in the future, people will use them as examples from
Yeah.
noir and neo-noir films
Mhm.
of certain type of archetype characters. And yeah, they both kind of blew me away in that. But again, I was exposed to them because I was seeing every movie back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
So, yeah.
We've discussed you don't miss very much,
Not too much.
which is cool. I wanted to ask you guys, based on their past roles that you've seen them in, was there anything that you felt like you were imprinting on their characters, watching them in these roles, which were, for all intents and purposes, like their breakout roles?
Yeah. I definitely don't feel like I was imprinting anything, like necessarily making assumptions about what their performances were going to be like based on other things I've seen them in. But I do think in some ways the opposite of Curtis Hanson's original aim of casting unknown actors, the opposite, still in a good way, happened with me, where I go into this and I'm like, this has an all-star cast. Like, I know I'm in good hands.
Cool.
Is kind of how I felt initially and how I felt throughout the film. I think they're both giving really, really excellent performances.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a great way to put it, like this sense of an all-star cast. And I think that, I like the way you put it too, Emilio, about imprinting your sense of the actors on them, because I feel like there was definitely a little bit of that with me, and at least in the initial read I had on both of them. Like with Russell Crowe, I think I have come to watching a lot of his classic performances a little late.
Yeah.
I think the first movie I saw him in was probably The Nice Guys, which comes out in 2016.
Kind of an interesting movie to pair with this one in some respects.
That was the first thing I saw him in, and since then I've seen like 3:10 to Yuma.
So good.
Yeah, and
film.
in just the last year, for the first time, I finally saw Gladiator.
Same here.
And The Insider as well.
Yeah.
And I think
he's so good in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think of the ones I've seen, I think my favorite performance of his is probably in The Insider.
Les Mis.
I haven't seen it. I know the memes. I'm not going to try to sing it. You can probably hear my voice is overcoming a cold right now, but the Javert meme.
Yeah.
At least he tried.
He did indeed.
Yeah. But to continue about Russell Crowe, I think the sense I got of him from a lot of movies is that, I mean, for lack of, further details, he can be kind of a brute a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And I certainly see that in LA Confidential. And I got the sense that, well, maybe this role kind of codified him. Yeah. And, in all of those movies that I mentioned, there's more dimensions to the character than just being a brute. But I think there is like always kind of that rough energy that goes with him.
Interestingly, commenting on the brutish nature of Russell Crowe in the role, again, because I'm a nerdling, I've done some research into this film.
Love it. Bring it.
In the book, which I did not read, but I read some things about it, Wendell Bud White is described as, quote, the biggest officer in the LAPD.
I have heard this.
Meaning like 6'8", gigantor, strongest guy there is. Now, obviously, Russell Crowe's about 5'11", in real life. But what they made him do, and I find this like the over the top, but in the best way of Curtis Hanson, they made him for several weeks live in an undersized apartment where
I love this.
He had to stoop to walk around and stoop through doorways, and all the furniture was slightly too small. And they made him experience being a hulking giant and then releasing him onto the film with that same kind of energy, still going from that.
Right.
It worked so well. That is kind of like genius, direction there. You see how strong he is when he basically rips a wooden chair in two during the interrogation scene. Arnold Schwarzenegger's not doing that very easily, but yet you have no problem believing that in that moment of rage, he's going to snap that chair like a toothpick. That's pretty good.
He embodies it very well. I also, I think, read that his costumes are sized slightly small, so that his costumes are very tight, like he's bursting out of his clothing.
Right. Well, I'll say one thing that I love about some of these early Russell Crowe roles. I mean, he had this incredible physical presence, and I love how in LA Confidential, he is not like a big roided up muscles on muscles kind of guy. Like he's not like, you don't look at him and go like, that guy never existed in the 50s. He looks exactly like what you think. A cop,
a tough guy, 50s cop.
Tough guy, 50s cop would look like. It's like he doesn't look like The Rock. He doesn't look like Stallone. Like there's no creatine shakes, no personal trainers. It's like there's like a raw.
It's all in his posture and his intense focus, and again feeling like he's being released from a cage. Is kind of how
the intensity is, I think, the biggest part of it
for sure. And the same thing in Gladiator. It's like he doesn't look like Gerard Butler in 300. It's like he looks like a dude who is ripped for the time.
Yeah.
Like,
good way to put it.
Yeah. Well, what he's done in his present life is echoing in film eternity.
Yes, it's true.
But then to go back to Guy Pearce, though, because I mean, he's another person who I've gotten to know from a lot of other films before seeing LA Confidential. And I think that like my sense of him from a lot of his different roles is that he often plays a character that is super methodical and good at what they do, but with something kind of eccentric about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then coming to see him as Ed Exley in LA Confidential, I think that you can definitely say some of these same descriptors about him here too, only the eccentric thing is, you know, just his professionalism.
Right.
Like how devoted he is to his principles.
That's interesting that you say that. I find him completely unprincipled.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
He is as corrupt as every other cop on the force at that time.
Yeah.
Only his corruption is personal. It's
Yeah.
not to.
Yeah.
It's to enrich himself and his career. He'll do whatever it takes, including ratting out every officer on the force for
Yeah.
things that they did to climb that ladder and get ahead of them. It's a very different type of corrupt, but it's still corrupt.
All of his corruption is by the rules corruption.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
there's a system.
Like he knows how to play the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, even Dudley Smith calls him a politician a few times,
Yep.
which I think is a good word for it.
Definitely.
Yeah, because a politician doesn't mean that you're like totally clean. Like a lot of politicians are just
Exactly.
as corrupt as police officers.
Just recall what happens at the end of the film, both in the district attorney's office and with Captain Dudley Smith, before you say that he's altogether a rule follower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. No, 100%. Actually, you know, you were saying, you know, someone who's methodical but kind of eccentric, and I would add on to that, he plays like a guy oftentimes who is a little too slick to trust.
Yeah.
You don't really know if you can trust him, and I kind of like that about his character, and it is definitely there in Ed Exley.
It's definitely there in this movie for
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, even Guy Pearce has said that when he read this script, he didn't really like Exley because he found him to be incredibly self-righteous.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that he kind of had to grow into his respect for this character.
Well, another thing I heard him say is that the book is a sprawling book.
Yeah.
Madeline, you said there's like this
There's like
book-
100 characters.
yeah, there's like 100 characters in it, and that this movie
Maybe
realistically
encompasses like 20%.
yeah, it's like a very small portion of what really is covered in that book. One of the things he said though that was really helpful was he read the book was great source material, and even though there's all kinds of stuff that doesn't happen in the film, there's all kinds of backstory.
It
Yeah.
informed his performance, you know, to know that these things existed in his history.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that Exley in the book is supposed to be a veteran.
Yeah, he's a war hero.
Yeah, a war hero, but maybe like his act of heroism was something that he faked potentially, is what I
interesting.
heard.
Fudging facts.
Again,
Exactly.
not to be trusted.
I mean, while watching his performance as Ed Exley, I mean, the character comparison that I thought of most consistently, even though there are some noticeable differences, was to Nicholas Angel in Hot Fuzz.
yeah,
But Nicholas
I can kind
Angel,
of see that.
yeah, Nicholas Angel is more of a bona fide rule follower, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
I could see that because one of the things that happens with Ed Exley in this movie is it's almost a problem how much he wants to quote unquote follow the rules.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And in some ways, you watch the movie and you're like, well, he seems like a good problem because this place seems kind of corrupt.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you're like, maybe this place needs a shakeup. The arcs of these characters, I think,
Yeah.
pull them from sometimes being good and then like being somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it really takes you on a journey, I think, with everyone in this film, but particularly the main three cops, and I guess Captain Dudley Smith as well. You
Yeah.
throw him in there. There is a passage of time in this that allows them to really go on a journey, some of which you see and some of which I think is kind of implied. Yeah, Exley's very green at the beginning, and Captain Dudley Smith, is asking him these questions like, are you willing to make these
I love
decisions?
these questions.
Which is basically like, are you willing to be like a dirty, corrupt cop?
Are you willing to plant evidence on a perp when you know he's guilty? No.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love in that scene that he says, we've been over this before.
Yeah.
It's such a good little detail.
But these things that he says no to at this time, some of which are things that we see him engage in throughout
the
the
very
film.
last one.
The very
on.
last one.
I love the very last one.
Well, yeah, because Captain Dudley Smith foretells his own fate with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very
Yeah.
much so.
My favorite moment is actually with the DA when Bud White is tossing him around the room.
Oh, yeah.
And he's yelling, get him off me, Exley, get him off. I don't know how.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he delivers it so cold. He's like,
the
I don't know
cold,
how.
because of course he knows how. He's letting someone else do his dirty work for him. He's
Yeah.
not doing
Yeah.
himself, but he's still doing the dirty work.
Exactly.
He has now entered that realm, a comfortable balance, I guess, in his mind of of corruption and cleaning up corruption.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is
what it is.
also how Dudley has been using Bud up to this point as well. It's like he's using Bud as the muscle. And then Exley ends up pretty much doing the same thing. It's like
Right.
using Bud as his hired muscle.
Yeah.
Except that one of the things that I love about Bud White's evolution in this, as much as you are right, Exley uses him as muscle in that scene with the DA. He also trusts White's intelligence.
At this point, absolutely.
Yeah, by that point he does.
He recognizes he's not just a dumb cop. He actually has a brain in his head. So they're more alike than you'd want to believe. Maybe Exley won't physically be the muscle, but he's willing to use that muscle.
Yeah.
And White's willing to, but he also has that intellect that can solve a case.
Well, it's
Yeah.
one of the things that Dudley says too. He's like, this force needs guys like Exley, and it needs guys like Bud White.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact quote is the department needs smart men like Exley and direct men like you. And he's
There we
talking
go.
to Bud.
Direct is
Yeah.
one word for it.
That's right.
But we started talking about Bud White, and he also, has this really interesting evolution. And I think so much of it is like, as you were saying, Matt, he is smart enough to dig into these cases.
Yeah.
Nobody believes that he is for most of the film, and I think he doesn't fully trust himself either. That's something he says to Lynn is like, I'm not smart enough. And Dudley at one point, I don't remember the quote. Dudley also says to him, like, that's not your job here.
Right.
Like you're here
Your
to be the
talents are
muscle.
more in the physical.
Exactly.
Right,
That's
right,
it. So it's like he's continuing to have this kind of beat into him
Mm-hmm.
that, of course, anybody at that point, if the entire world is telling you who you are, then you kind of start to believe that.
Yeah.
And he needs, I think, somebody like Lynn who sees, it doesn't have to be Lynn, but he needs somebody to see and tell him, like, I believe you have talents other than your brute strength.
Right.
And I think that allows him to grow. And ultimately, Exley is able to, give him some of that as well.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
The night owl made you. You're willing to give all that up? Blow that all that with a wrecking ball. So
There
Yeah.
we go.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
It's so character driven. I think
Yeah.
even Curtis Hanson, the director, talked about how the look of the film, he was really interested in having it obviously feel like 1950s LA, but he also was like, we're going to do all the set decoration work and then we're going to kind of forget about it. It's a little bit like, reminded me of when we talked about Nashville.
Yeah.
How about Robert Altman inviting everyone and they have a big party and then he just rips up the script and he's like, now we're going to do it. It's a little bit like that with the kind of set decoration. It's like, great, we did our homework. Wonderful. That's going to do its thing, but the characters are going to really bring this movie alive. So
That's something that's true about the three main cop characters. It may be a bit of a trope, but you see it a lot in noir films on certain kinds of mysteries, is that they all have like some kind of specific trait about them at the beginning that is like what sets them apart from their cohort, but they get so dug into the mystery that they are investigating later on that they kind of seem to shed some of those earlier traits. It's true for all of them to some degree, but I'm thinking in particular of Jack Vincennes here.
yeah, we haven't talked much about him yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ready to say exactly why just yet, but his arc gets shortened,
Yeah.
a little more so than that of Exley or Bud White. He really, of the three of them, is the most of an attention seeker, at least at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because he's the one with the celebrity
Connections.
status.
and
Connections,
yeah.
And aspirations.
Yeah,
Totally.
That's true.
the technical consultant on that show that they're
Badge of honor.
Badge of honor.
Yeah.
The like Dragnet
Yeah.
analog. Yeah.
Mhm.
They even dropped the just the facts.
Just the facts, man. Just the
Yeah.
facts, Jack.
They got to do it. Yeah. I love it too. You were talking, Matt, a little earlier about how these characters feel like archetypes. And I kind of love how his is the cop who is the one that seems drawn a lot by his own ego.
He's drawn to the trappings of being a cop and has forgotten why he became one. Remember,
Yeah.
they asked him,
Exactly.
why did you become a cop? I don't remember.
And
That's
the
one of my
pause
favorite parts of the
also
movie.
before he delivers
Right.
that
He
line.
can't,
Yeah.
he really thinks about it.
Yeah.
He can't remember.
Yeah.
All he knows is that he can go to Hollywood and talk about the outer realm of being a cop, the costume of being a cop, but not what it means to be a cop.
Right.
Because he's forgotten.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I think that, what reminds him of it, and I've not really seen this discussed too much, and maybe I'm reading more into the movie than actually exists
No, do it here, please.
is the Matt Reynolds
Yeah,
That's it.
storyline.
Yeah.
definitely.
Because although it's never said and never stated in the movie, I feel that his character is
Okay.
much like Matt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And I think that when he sees poor Matt Reynolds
Yeah.
lying on the floor
Yeah.
and
In the motel. Yeah.
and then he's talking to Exley about teaming up, he's remembering what it means to be a cop again at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe what led him to be a cop was the injustice he saw to people who were like himself.
Yeah, maybe.
And he says to Exley, they just think it's a Hollywood homicide,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Yeah.
That's what gets him back in. I think that was, to me, the most interesting part of the arc, that he had someone who was like him had to be victimized to wake him up, to remember why he became a cop.
And he's on a journey there because after they have kind of set up Matt Reynolds and then Jack goes to the bar and you can see that he's very conflicted about what he's done and he like leaves the payoff
Right.
on his glass. And that's when he goes to the motel and finds Matt Reynolds dead and his throat slit.
It seems like he goes there early.
Yeah.
Like he might almost want to go and be like, dude, get
Yeah,
out of here.
That's kind of what I was
Yeah.
saying is that I think that him leaving the payoff from Sid Hutchins at the bar kind of shows that he doesn't want to be part of this. He's not going to the motel now to like, all right, it's my turn. Like it's my close up here to drag this guy out of the motel room. It's more like I need to do so. I need to fix this.
Yeah.
And he gets there and the lines are something like, you know, you don't have to do this, kid. Like he's trying to stop it.
Talk him out of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he's too late. I want to quickly read a short Letterboxd review from David Sims, who is co-host of a podcast that at least Julian and I listen to, Blank Check, and he's a reviewer at The Atlantic. His Letterboxd review is as follows. When you think about it, it's The Wizard of Oz. Bud gets a brain, Jack gets a heart, Ed gets the courage.
Fascinating.
So who's the Dorothy?
Good question.
Lynn Bracken, she
Lynn
goes home
Bracken.
to Arizona.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
There we go.
Oh, she gets to go
Dun,
back.
dun, dun.
Bisbee is the new Kansas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's pretty heavy. I like
Yeah,
that.
I feel like it wraps it up quite well.
It does.
For
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, so, we've spoken a lot about the institution of which these main characters are a part. So this was released in 1997. This is a film set in LA. And of course, when you talk about representation of the police in Los Angeles in the 1990s, there are some very specific associations that come up that sadly I think are still very relevant today.
Yeah.
Of course, this is, in the wake of the attack on Rodney King and the riots that came about as a result. And so because of, the time and setting of this movie, I was struck by how frankly it depicted the systemic racism of the police department in the film, among many other injustices. It kind of made me think for a comparison of how a movie like John Ford's The Searchers is partially praised because of being honest about the racism that is embedded in the Western genre of film, that, you have white settler characters fighting against indigenous people. And I kind of got the vibe that LA Confidential was going for something similar, at least with that aspect. And so how do we interpret the film's frankness about the evils that can and do exist in institutions of authority?
If you think about the noir genre in general, you always come up on corruption.
Yeah.
One of the things that this movie also touches on is that the DA is super corrupt as well.
Yeah,
You
he's
know?
being blackmailed also.
Exactly. Everybody seems to be comfortable. There's almost a bureaucracy for the corruption. I do think that that's something that you see happen a lot in noir. I'll say this too. I don't know how you guys felt. One of the things that was a little jarring when watching this movie now was seeing the interrogation scene.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In
Because
fact,
they do a lot of things that are since extremely illegal.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not at the time.
Well, and I would say just the visceral feeling of watching the interrogation, watching that scene was particularly tricky. And I couldn't remember. I was like, I feel like this movie addresses it in some way. And it does it in a small way, but I think in a meaningful way, which is that the patsies, the three black kids who are brought in, the movie has a moment where Exley is like, yeah, I kind of got sucked into this too. Like, I've been conditioned to think that because all the cops target these minorities,
Mhm.
that of course they're guilty of something.
Yeah.
And so the
that
movie
goes back to the Bud White statement. You're going to tear it all down. You had it.
Yeah.
The Night Owl made you, but he's not now willing in some way to sacrifice those, the lives that have already been lost
right.
because, the truth means more.
And because that's what made him want to become a cop, was being able to track down people who thought they could get away with it.
Yeah.
And he's
Right.
like, if it wasn't these guys, then it was somebody else. And that person is getting away with it.
Yeah.
And they're able to do that partially because of me.
Right. Because
Yeah.
I fed into a bias.
Yeah, I fell for it. I
Yeah.
fell for the setup.
Right. I think if that movie was made now, I think you would maybe see a little bit more in the epilogue about the three men. By the way, those actors in that scene are really, really effective, and I
Definitely.
wanted to look them up.
Yep.
They are Jeremiah Burkett, Salim Grant, and Kareem Washington, but the three of them are really good.
Very,
And
very good.
three very different,
different
energies.
performances.
Yeah.
performances there.
Yeah.
The scared kid, the guy who's like the more dominant of the three, and then the
Yep.
guy who's kind of caught in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
The one who knows how to keep silent until he can't keep silent.
Exactly.
So, it's very tricky performances by all three of them and really effective.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
to your point on the depiction of racism, especially compared to the Searchers, which is, it comes up on a lot of lists as not only the best Western of all time, but one of the best films of all time.
Yeah.
What is interesting about that film is that, up to that point, pretty regularly, if not always, the Native American tribes were depicted basically just as ruthless, brainless savages.
Yeah.
Right.
But here in that movie, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, the Comanche chief was Scar. His motivations for doing what he's doing of, going to settlers, homes and killing whoever's there, and because his own two kids were murdered
Mm-hmm.
by white men, and he's getting revenge for what was done to him. And who's to say if that had not been done, would he have actually done this at all?
Yeah.
And it was kind of the first real time a Hollywood film depicting the native tribes was giving them any sense of possible humanity
Mm-hmm.
here.
Right.
What would we do in the same position if our two kids were murdered? Wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
you go and tear the world apart till you got what was coming to you or what you felt was deserved?
Right. Like
Yeah.
asking you to
Right.
put yourself in the shoes of people that look very different than you.
And
Yeah.
from
That
what
lived
I
a very different life than you.
exactly, and
Yeah.
from what I recall, I think that John Ford had intended even to go further
Mm.
in that, but got pushback from certain individuals in the film. I think one of them would be pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they did not feel comfortable with that. It was kind of as far as in his time he could go
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
with that
Totally.
storyline. Here, even though the three African American kids are bad seeds,
Yeah, they
They're-
did
They
do
did a bad
something
thing,
very
yes.
bad.
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
did. They did something very, very bad.
Right.
But at the same time, they are humanized to a certain degree in a way that is showing that the cops are in their own way, maybe even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So credit there, but
Mhm.
it is a very raw and frank look at what policing in the 50s, not just in LA, but probably everywhere,
Yeah.
Yeah.
was like.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and this is a time when the LAPD is really trying to revamp their image. And that's a lot of what the motivation, I think, of the like higher ups. Dudley has his own motivations, but there's some other guys there. I don't know exactly what their jobs are, but there's that one guy who's kind of constantly talking about like, oh, this is going to be really bad in the press. Like they're really
Right.
going to latch on to this. It's going to take us years. Like at the end, once Dudley has been revealed as trying to take over Mickey Cohen's like crime rings and becoming a drug lord and all of this, that one guy is like, it's going to take us decades to come back from this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when you really see the even deeper corruption where they get to spin everything.
Right.
They
right.
get to create their own narrative because they have that power.
right. They're in
Mhm.
that position where they can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking mostly about things stemming from the instance of systemic racism that occurs in the middle of the movie, but there's one notable instance that occurs at the beginning of the movie too.
Yeah, I found that really challenging to watch. I think both times.
Yeah.
Which is the riot that breaks out.
Bloody Christmas.
Bloody
Right,
Christmas, you know, when a bunch of Latin American men are arrested. You know, I think of that riot scene early on too, because it's so visceral and raw. That is one moment where you really do see, you know, the cops and these supposed criminals who they've arrested are really placed on the same level. They're made equal there for a minute.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. And so it's sometimes in those instances of like raw human nature that you really see the naked truth of those characters.
By the way, that prison riot was based on a real event.
Oh wow.
The Bloody Christmas was a real thing.
I think I heard that.
That happened. Yeah. I do love the interspersion of reality into this, you know, fictional story.
Yeah.
Those
Of course.
Very, very effective.
Yeah. I this is a really small detail, but I just love it. Is the thing that makes Vincennes actually throw a punch is that somebody got blood on his suit.
Yeah.
Outer trappings, meaning more of in the, you know, inner workings of being a cop.
Exactly.
For sure. And I mean, that scene, I think, as hard as it is to watch, it's interesting to look at the different motivations of the cops to join the
100%.
fight. Because
Yeah.
Vincennes, as you said, like he throws a punch because like somebody runs into him and gets blood on his suit.
Right.
Whereas, you know, Bud originally comes down to actually de-escalate.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he's brought down, they were like, put a leash on your partner.
Right.
But of course, he has a very short fuse.
He
So
does.
it's
Yes.
like pretty easy to
Yeah.
set him off.
Yeah. And that's maybe one of the earliest indications that you get that, you know, Bud is not simply this brute cop, that he has like, you know, some principle to him.
Right. He is corrupt, but he's not corrupted. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He's
a
not
good way of putting
fully wrecked. He actually has a set of morals and standards,
Yeah.
you know, as evidenced by his wanting to defend
Protect women.
Right.
Yeah.
Protect women, especially, you know, especially. But,
And his refusal to testify.
Yeah.
Right.
Against Stensland.
Which
Yeah.
is, I love, it's so well positioned in the movie because you see him first and then 45 seconds later, it's like Exley's like, no, I'll do it
Yeah,
because
of course. You don't even have to ask Exley.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you don't. But he says, he's like, you know, I'm going to counter that right away and say, because a lot of the people in the force think that silence and integrity are the same thing.
And then, of course, he also comes up with a solution of
I know.
how to deal with that testimony, which shows, again, although he's following rules, he's as corrupt as anybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Send the lifers out, the ones who already have their pensions.
Yeah.
And then
Here's a
Yeah.
plan.
the other,
Let's
right,
do it.
the other
Yeah.
ones just give him a suspension. Like he, you know, even though they're as guilty as the other guys, he's going to let some guys get away with it.
And
Right.
then he's
Yeah.
now like playing his leverage. This is
Right.
his time to fight for a promotion.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, he can follow the rules when that serves him, and he can also, you know, play the system when that serves him too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, just to kind of like sum up my thoughts on how this film portrays all of the institutional wrongdoing that it does. I mean, I think it's interesting that, you know, you get these really heinous scenes of systemic racism that play out, and it's not the movie. It's, you know, it trusts its audience enough, you know, that it's not just like, you know, this twist of like, oh my God, the system is racist, because it kind of assumes, you know, it's like, yeah, we know that already. And it's kind of just plays it out as just part of how they go about their business.
I think it goes even beyond the system because
Yeah.
I know it's a small moment. I'm not sure if anybody else at the table would recognize it the same way I would. Being Jewish, when Sid Hutchins is talking, I think it was to Jack. At one point, he uses the word. It's a bad word. Schwarze.
Yeah.
You know, it's a derogatory term for a black person.
Okay.
But he uses it very comfortably
Right.
Mhm.
in his conversation with Jack Vincennes,
Yeah.
showing that even beyond the police world, this racism is institutionalized. It's not just the police; it's the world.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Right.
you know that
Yeah.
is that way. So
Yeah, and I picked that up too while watching. And I am Jewish too, so it's
I picked it
Yeah.
up because he said it so poorly. It was clearly not, you know, really.
Danny DeVito,
Yeah.
not Jewish.
Danny
Not-
DeVito,
not one of the tribe.
Not speaking Yiddish
well,
properly.
there's like that kind of unwritten rule that in casting movies that like Jewish and Italian actors can play each other's ethnicity.
That's only 95% true.
Yeah. And Danny DeVito, you can want him to play a Jewish character, but that's one small chip in his ability to do it.
For sure.
While we're on this general topic, the last thing I wanted to point out is that I had heard somewhere that a lot of the actors in this do ride-alongs in preparation for this film, and that Guy Pearce really did not like the cop that he is paired with because he said he was racist.
Oh,
I read that too.
Wow.
And that like his ability to form his character had less to do with the ride along and more to do with the rehearsals for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to imagine though that would inform his performance too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perhaps not of his own character, maybe some, but the fact that there are still in 1997 and in 2025 people like this who are police.
Yeah.
2 words: Mark Furman.
Yep.
There you go.
There
O.J.
we
Simpson trial. So
Totally. Which was very fresh on the mind, I think, of people when this movie first came out. Yeah. I love this. I love all the points. It's really great. The conceit for the movies that we're discussing for this cycle are that, they have Oscar-winning Best Supporting Acting performances in them. And so I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about, I think, Matt, you would like to, I think we'd all like to talk a little bit about Kim Basinger's performance as Lynn Bracken. How do we think she was in this movie? She's a very unique presence in this film, right?
she has a presence. Yeah. I'll give you that. Listen, I'm not sure if it's just, I think this movie was so well written, but maybe it was a product of the writing. I honestly felt she was fine, but that anyone could have played the part based on her performance.
Yeah.
However, I think there were actresses contemporary at the time who could have played the part way better. One of whom was mentioned earlier, which is Annette Bening in that role.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Would have been so much better than. And by the way, I love Kim Basinger and other things. The Natural. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it.
Robert Redford?
Yes.
Yeah.
She is in that movie what she should have been in this movie.
Okay.
It's a much more layered and nuanced and emotive performance. I almost felt like Kim Basinger was sleepwalking through this part when she did it. And I was shocked that she won the Oscar for this, especially, since 2 of the people she was up against that year are from 2 of my favorite films, Julianne Moore for Boogie Nights,
Right.
which there is one scene in that film when she's standing outside the courtroom weeping over the loss of her child. She should have won the Oscar just for that.
All you had to say was there was one scene in that film, and I immediately knew
You know what it was?
Yeah.
It rips your guts out. She should have won. Not to mention that part's so hard to play.
Yeah.
But if you forget that, Minnie Driver for Good Will Hunting was nominated in that same cycle. And it's a very different performance, but the casual greatness of that performance is so good.
Yeah, she's very good in that movie. All of the emotional stuff that has to happen through her character is
and I think
so there.
Exactly. And I don't think that Kim Basinger's performance in this movie measured up.
I'm curious to hear from you guys because she really is the only female character of substance in this film.
Yes, she is.
We'll say that.
Yeah.
And that also may have hurt her ability to do more, in her portrayal of the role. So, again, there are other factors. Maybe the writing wasn't great. Maybe Curtis Hanson wasn't directing that day. Maybe it was the assistant director. I don't know what it is. You don't know. So there are other factors. I just felt,
Yeah, she gushes with praise over Curtis Hanson. So I have to imagine that she felt in good hands working with him. I'm sorry, you were going to say something, Madeline.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I read that she originally passed on this role. And I think Curtis Hanson just really thought that she was the person for the part. I mean, I don't know whether or not she was. I think I would agree with Matt that I thought she was fine. I thought she was effective. I think the other performances in this are just so good.
I know.
And part of it may be that we do spend a lot more time with all the male characters. We don't know that much about her, really. I guess that can be very intentional. In a way, is that the world doesn't see the real her. The world sees Veronica Lake.
Right.
And, Bud is the only person who's really able to get to know her at all. But even then, I feel like he only ever learns kind of surface level details, like where did she grow up, and
only what
things like
she's
that.
willing to tell him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He doesn't bother to dig much more than that.
Yeah, and thus
he has his own issues
That's
being
true.
open with people. But yeah, sorry.
And thus, we as the audience don't really get to dig into her that much. So it's like it's difficult for me, I think, to be too harsh on her because I actually do think she's just not that well developed of a female character.
Right. Yeah.
But I thought she was fine.
Yeah.
I think Basinger kind of was given the Oscar number one because
I want to ask you about this.
She'd been deprived, maybe in other circumstances where she should have been number one. The Natural.
Well,
she should have won the Oscar for that performance. It was terrific. It was great.
I'm curious. I think you grew up in the sweet spot where you saw her career really blossom. Was she an actress where in this movie it was like, it's time?
Probably.
You think so?
It could have been. I mean, I think so because of who the other nominees were. Although one of them could have been the really easy way to go because I know Gloria Stewart was nominated for Titanic that year.
Right.
Correct.
And she was 80 something years old, and quite frankly, maybe if you're going to give it to anyone who it's time, probably would have been her.
She didn't have another chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably not. No.
You also had Joan Cusack for In and Out.
Oh yeah,
Which is a very polarizing
film
performance. Some people loved it. Some people despise it.
Right.
I don't think that was, she was going to win for that. Julianne Moore and Minnie Driver were, I think, by people in the Academy who were voting, probably looked at as actresses where you're looking at the trajectory of their career and how they're doing, and you're going to say,
they're going to be back.
She's going to get another chance.
Yes.
Because they're really talented and they could come back and have something great. Now, in Julianne Moore's case, that turned out to be very true. She's had multiple tour de force performances. In Minnie Driver's, not so much, but she was young. So people probably thought she'd have a chance. Whereas Kim Basinger was not young anymore.
Mm-hmm.
She'd already done performances that had kind of been cast aside. The Natural, and also, not that I'm not sure if it's an Oscar quality performance, but a hard performance, 8.5 weeks.
Or 9.5
weeks, right? 9.5 weeks. Very hard part to play.
She's so good in that movie.
She's great.
I rewatched that movie like 2 years ago, and that movie does not work if you don't want the best for her.
It's very tough. Not to mention the fact she had to act against Mickey Rourke.
Mm-hmm.
For God's sake, anybody deserves an Oscar for trying to do that. So
he's very blank in that movie.
Well,
you have to believe that he is someone that you would fall in love with and do stuff.
She carried
that movie.
And she probably had other performances that may have gone under the radar by that point. And I think probably people in the voting academy said, this is her best chance.
Yeah.
Now, it turns out, funny enough, she did get another nomination later on for 8 Mile, directed by
Curtis Hanson.
So maybe she is Curtis Hanson's muse in some ways. But I think that's it was a totality of circumstances thing here where you had other actresses who were probably the stronger performances, but were probably felt they'll have other chances. Yeah. So maybe that's how
that's how the stars aligned.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Julian, what did you think of Kim Basinger in this?
Well, I mean, just to go off these Oscar thoughts, maybe sometimes the word shouldn't be best supporting actress, but it's like most agreed about supporting actress. Or whatever the award is, because that certainly seems to have been the case here. I mean, I have not seen a lot with Kim Basinger. I think part of that has to do just with me being the age I am and the movies that I've predominantly been exposed to in my lifetime. That I think, her heyday really is mostly in movies that come from before my existence. And I think this is one of just 3 movies, I think, that I've seen with her. The other 2 being Wayne's World 2.
She's actually not bad in that.
Yeah, she has a pretty funny appearance in that movie.
Yeah.
As like a flame for Garth.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That and the other one was another movie that's already come up in this conversation, The Nice Guys.
Yeah.
Which she has
also paired with Russell Crowe in that movie. A couple scenes. Yeah.
Where she has a low screen time but memorable performance, which can also be said of LA Confidential.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's another thing, aside from your assessments of the quality of the performance itself. Like sometimes like, bait for a supporting Oscar could be someone is memorable despite low screen time. She is good in the role, but it's, watching it just as an average viewer, it's not something that would jump out to me as like Oscar nom. I think, my favorite parts of her performance are actually, what she does with her face in some of those later scenes when, she's more downtrodden and, the mood is very palpable there. For a lot of the rest of the movie, I think she, it's like a average stock character in a film noir, the femme fatale, played by someone who's very capable. It makes me think a little bit of like something that Meryl Streep said about her role in The Deer Hunter, which is, I think, she was playing a pretty stock character in that movie too, and she only took that part so that she could be with her partner at the time, John Cazale.
That's the thing, is that Meryl Streep had very good reason to take a not particularly well-developed female character role in that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think Kim Basinger had a reason like that to take this part.
Oh, then again, she, I'm going to be the only woman in this film that anybody's going to remember to any degree.
Well,
this is a good feature for me if I take it. And who would blame her for taking it? Not to mention, as we've discussed earlier, our two male leads in the film were unknown.
That's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
She'd be a big name in this film, could make a bigger impact. I think that's how she probably felt about it. Smart.
And we haven't even said yet that on the poster for this movie, she is the most prominently displayed person.
Yeah.
More than all of the male main characters are there too, but she is the one who's blown up the biggest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys that I think she's fine. I agree that this is not Oscar nomination or Oscar winner material. She does some nice things. The first patter that she has with Bud is kind of good.
Yeah.
I do think that her character is kind of important because they bring up the fact that the specter of Hollywood in this movie, how there are all these people that come off the bus and they show up in Hollywood and they think they're going to be stars. And it's like, there's a moment, probably one of the best lines she gives is like, she says something or they're talking about what she does. And she's like, well, this is the closest we get to acting sometimes.
Yeah.
She's got some nice moments. And I think that her character is supposed to represent what happens when people show up with dreams,
Failed dreams.
Yeah.
and then they have to kind of fall back on something.
Yeah.
And it's this. Yeah.
Because Matt Reynolds is another example of this.
Exactly. Yes.
Who
Yeah.
meets a much grislier end.
Right. But again, she's the female representation of that, or the one that there's the Sue Lefferts character who also is there. But yeah, she becomes collateral damage real quick.
Right. Very fast.
Yeah.
And they're all connected to this fleur de lis operation.
Right.
That's run. We haven't talked about this character.
Oh,
yet,
I know. Pierce Patch.
Pierce Patch,
Pierce
played by
Patchett,
David Strathairn. And he's like the kind of character. This is funny to me that there's like, I mentioned a bunch of other 90s neo-noir movies earlier. And this LA Confidential is one of 3 movies that have this rich guy living in like an interesting modernistic house.
I love his house.
Who's connected somehow to porn production. The other two movies that have that are Lost Highway, David Lynch movie that's released the same year, and then another one that's released very close in time, The Big Lebowski, which has Jackie Treehorn.
Right.
Still like that's like one of the most perfectly named characters in film.
Yeah.
And David Strathairn was so oily great in this film. He was so good.
Yeah.
Talk about a
Good,
person with low screen time who makes a huge impact.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's an example where if he had gotten nominated for an Oscar, you wouldn't necessarily dispute it because you remember his oily, unctuous, sleaziness very well. With Kim Basinger, she's just kind of there. I mean, we were talking earlier about someone who I felt would have done a great
and
job on that part.
Yeah.
Now imagine if Michelle Pfeiffer had done that part.
God.
I thought of her too. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like the Fabulous Baker Boys. I was thinking about her in my brain from that.
The movie that made me think of her, because I wrote down 4 actresses who I thought would have been of that time, who I thought would have been, and she's definitely one. Was a movie called Tequila Sunrise
Oh yeah.
Not seen
Kurt
it.
Russell?
with Kurt Russell and Mel Gibson.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, it's a drug trafficking case with corrupt
Very-
police.
yeah,
Very
yeah, yeah.
convenient. And she's like, the
Femme
femme
fatale.
fatale of it. She would have been so good with just a look
Yeah.
in that scene. Again, I really feel that there were other actresses out there who could have smoked her in that part. Nicole Kidman would have been another one, although maybe she's probably better now than she was then. I'm not sure.
On your list is Sharon Stone one of them too?
I purposely kept her off because it's too easy with, with
Basic Instinct.
Yeah.
But no, the other actress that it wouldn't have been probably my first thought, but I was just interested to see what she would have done with the part, would have been Gina Davis.
That came to my mind as well. I was like, maybe.
She often plays like a more innocent character.
But not always.
Not always.
Right, not
There's
always.
a movie called The Long Kiss Goodnight.
I love The Long Kiss Goodnight.
With Samuel L. Jackson.
When you look at the timing of LA Confidential, this is like when Gina Davis's career has started to downturn.
Yeah.
Because of Cutthroat Island.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Just
right.
a few years before.
You know what, though, makes me think of it, too? So, formative Gina Davis movie for me is A League of Their Own.
Of course.
I love them.
I love A League of Their Own, too. I feel like she plays that time period so nicely.
Definitely.
Like, she's got the look.
And something else you need to watch, Julian, as a huge Marc Maron fan, is you need to watch Glow.
I've seen a few episodes.
But she comes in I think their last season that they do before it gets canceled. And she, I believe, is like a casino owner in that. She's not like the bad guy or anything, but she's a little spicy. And I think that would fit well.
She's also an Oscar-winning actress of her own, and for a movie that was like probably the complete opposite of what LA Confidential would be.
Yeah.
She is a deserving Oscar actress who probably would have done some really cool things with that role. Those were my four. That I came
do
up with.
wonder if also part of their casting thought is like, who can we style the most like Veronica Lake?
And that is also
That's a good point.
a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll put a bow on this. Kim Basinger, fine?
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine, yeah.
Fine. 7 out of 10. I'll give a number.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's passing.
There were a couple things about LA Confidential that made me think a lot of a somewhat similar movie, The Departed. Police and the mob are, same thing, different guises. Right. And I thought that she was maybe one of the most salient reminders because The Departed is another movie that has like only one developed female character played by Vera Farmiga. And who also, without getting into the specifics, is also romantically entangled with the two main men in that movie at different times.
Good point.
True.
Good point.
I'm sorry, this is so off topic, but I just randomly, Julian, I think I figured out your unlikely shared universe. I wasn't trying to. I just had a movie jump into my brain that I think is going to be yours. So we'll see when we get there.
If you're right.
Stay
Stay
tuned.
tuned. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this could be amusing.
I'm going to go write down my guess. You guys continue talking, and that way, if it is correct, then I have proof.
Do it. You'll
Yeah.
just hold up the paper.
But so, we're reaching, getting towards the end of our discussion. And I've always found noir, whether it's neo or, in its proper form, to be a very philosophical film genre. I think a lot of other noirs have like some maybe kind of message that it's all absurd. These characters are hopeless.
Not like nihilistic.
Yeah. There's a bleakness to it all. But I felt like, if the tone were a bit different, that would come across in LA Confidential. But it just didn't really feel like that was what the movie was going for to me. There's a lot of the genre hallmarks of noir, whether it be, it's violence, it's double crossings, or just the neatness of it all as it plays out in spite of the very complicated web of things. But there was something that just felt very resolute about the ending. It almost felt like a little optimistic too, which surprised me. And so whether it's about the ending or other greater details, what do we think about LA Confidential distinguishes it from its greater genre?
Well, I think you're 100% right about that tonally and as philosophically about that ending. I think what that ending is to me is that the world is corrupt. We are all corrupt, but if we try really hard, we can all, when we need to, rise above that corruption in a way that helps the world sustain itself and helps life go on in a satisfactory way, which maybe is just by itself a far more optimistic take on the world than other film noir. I don't think it's saying that the world is a great place. I think it's saying flat out the world is filled with evil and corruption and racism and sexism and everything else. But
people
each
don't
of us have
have
the ability, even if it's only for a moment, to rise above that and help the world go on.
Yeah. Although I feel like the more I think about this ending, the more like it also has a corrupt foundation.
Yeah.
In that, like, when
Oh, yeah.
Exley says, like, you're going to need two heroes. Like,
Mhm.
he once again figures out how to, like, play the game.
Yeah. I'm glad you're bringing this up. Yeah.
And so I think that it is an interesting distinction from other noir films, because I think on the surface it does feel more optimistic, but then there is still this underbelly that's been set up,
Right.
that's not quite as obvious, but it's stuck in my brain.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a lot in this conversation about how this is really a movie that rides on its characters. And I think that the ending, for the three main characters who we see in that final scene, it ends resolutely for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. For Exley, for Bud White, and for Lynn Bracken.
Yeah. I was going to say one thing. So I remember when I first saw this movie, it was a total shock to me that Russell Crowe's character lives. Like when he's in the back of the
Yeah.
car.
I mean,
yeah,
he
me
is
too.
shot at incredibly close range.
Yeah, watching it again now to talk about it, that dude does the most selfless thing in that shootout, because he
Yeah.
could have totally played dead,
Right.
Yeah.
but he stabs
He
Dudley
stabs Dudley.
just long enough for Exley to kind of get
Get
the
the gun
upper
out.
Yeah.
hand. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's a dead man when he does that.
Yeah.
Totally,
But he's not.
But
I mean, he's
also
not.
the strongest cop on the force.
Right,
That's
exactly.
true.
You gotta remember,
Yeah, the most-
if
yeah.
anyone's going
Just
to be able
had
to take
so
3
much
gunshots,
muscle.
Yeah, right.
he's going to be the one that can take it in the third shot, close up. But
Basically goes, I guess,
goes through his cheeks.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That to me, we were talking about optimism. There is like a real lift, I feel, when you watch this movie and you're like, this dude's okay.
And you see him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. Just like, oh my God, he made it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because it doesn't answer it for you right away. You don't know till you
Right.
see him
No.
in the car.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just my nitpicking of details, but I knew that Bud White lived.
Mhm.
Okay.
I knew and it was during the interrogation scene when Exley at the end is, as you said, giving like the play-by-play of
Yeah.
everything
Right.
that has gone on.
Yeah.
Which
And
I
he-
needed the first time.
Right.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
very helpful.
No, I
Yeah.
I
No.
definitely still need it. I
But
think
he
so.
also
too.
talks about the officers who died in that final
He
shootout
doesn't
and
name
does not mention
Oh,
Bud
that's
White.
right.
I
said,
noticed that the second
Then we
time.
know
Yeah.
Bud White's going to live. So
Yeah.
And
Well,
also-
I also, my response, the visceral response I had was when I was 11.
that's true.
So yes, but
Yeah.
no, you're right. You're right. No, but you're right about that.
I was
You're right.
28.
Yeah, there you go.
Whenever like a death scene happens in a movie, like if the character is dying, part of how you know it usually is that they're gonna like give it a certain amount of focus. Usually it's in time. Usually they'll spend a bit of time if this is the curtain call for the character.
I just feel like the first time I watched this, I was like pretty tired, and
Yeah.
I don't want to go as far as to say lost, but I even with Exley's play-by-play, I'm like, okay, I understand Dudley bad guy.
Yeah,
That I get.
Yeah.
Your head is still
But-
swimming. There's a lot of details.
Yeah,
Well,
piecing
yeah.
it together
The-
was difficult.
The whole thing with the heroin
Yeah.
and them trying to get that on the side.
Yeah.
That is like the 140th detail.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that you
Totally.
think that's a very important driver of the like Buzz Meeks character and Stensland.
And again,
yeah.
true to life.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
actually happened in LA where the cops tried to take over the heroin racket from Mickey Cohen.
There we
That's,
go.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's as I think more about like what this ending might suggest philosophically. I mean, I'm compelled to think of the endings of the two Coen brothers movies that in time surround LA Confidential, which are Fargo and The Big Lebowski,
Mhm.
which interestingly both like in spite of a lot of really like horrible things happening throughout their plots, the main characters are just kind of okay by the end.
Mhm.
Where like in Fargo, you like Marge Gunderson is in bed with Norm Gunderson and you're talking about how he placed in the duck painting competition.
Yeah.
He got
Man.
We
stirred.
still want to know what's going on in the Mallards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's there's this sense that it's
Thank
like
you, Madeline.
yeah, like another day in the life. But then in The Big Lebowski, well, the dude abides when it's
Right.
all over. And so it's like these things have happened, but I think, these characters, and I think it's true in LA Confidential too, they figured out their station in life and they know how to go forward.
At least like the most central characters, there
Yeah.
are a few people that do not like make it to that point
Right,
in these
yeah.
films.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's,
there we
but
go.
also Jack Vincennes, when
Yeah.
he reaches his demise, I mean, there's still a little victory there too.
Yeah.
I
True.
love that detail. And
Yeah.
I love how that detail becomes the reveal for
Right.
Ed Exley.
That was great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that Exley will end up solving this case if that doesn't happen. Like, I do think that Jack Vincennes being able to add that on as
Rollo
the Rollo
Tomasi,
Tomasi,
Yeah.
it plants something in Dudley's head that ultimately is what reveals him
Right.
to Exley.
Right. And you can even see, you are able to sense that there is a tiny bit of peace.
Yeah.
That he's able to
Yeah.
just complicate things just enough that
Mhm.
maybe there'll be a chance for him to get the retribution, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I always like it in a movie when a word or a gesture, like a small thing, can be like the revealing thing for a character too.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, like it feels like we'd be a little remiss not to say it that like knowing what we know about Kevin Spacey now, that's always puts a little asterisk on watching any movie that he's in.
Right. I also
Yeah.
feel like I'm able to appreciate the acting performance and just kind of separate
art from artist.
Yeah. There are some people I can't do that with.
Yeah.
With him, I have a little bit more. Everyone's
Removed.
mileage is different.
I feel like I can do that too, because in a lot of the movies he's in, well, for one thing, he's not the only good quality in those movies.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not all about him.
Yeah.
But I think that, Jack Vincennes is mostly a character you can kind of root for
Yeah.
as a viewer. He's not all good, but I guess, you just don't see the same person as Kevin Spacey is in
Right.
real life.
Although Guy Pearce has spoken about Kevin Spacey being, quote, handsy in this movie.
Yeah.
Really?
So,
On the set.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is, right when this movie is made, like right in Kevin Spacey's prime.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah,
He's
for
definitely
sure.
the hottest thing going in this movie, I think, when it comes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that moment when they do the movie premiere pot bust
Yeah.
where, he finds the card, but he also finds the marijuana and just pockets it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that was a little vestige from the book. Apparently, Vincennes was more of a junkie, and so that feels a little bit like a nod to some of what was in the book that didn't necessarily make it in a fully fledged way into the film. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
A motif that keeps coming up throughout the movie that it really struck me every time they did it was you have a bunch of these shots that are on one side of do they call it a one-way mirror?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in interrogation rooms. A bunch of shots that are on the, the side of the person who's observing, not the person being interrogated, where you see the reflection of the person observing in the mirror.
Yeah.
I think like every time they do that in the movie, and there are several different points, I think it's really great. I think that's a great visual cinematic device, as long as it's not overused. To connect to a different movie for a moment, one of my favorite shots in The Silence of the Lambs is a shot just like that, where you see it's from Hannibal's perspective, and Clarice is on the other side of the glass, and you see his reflection
in the side.
as he's it's right when he's describing that Buffalo Bill might be about to strike again, right before the scene where Catherine Martin gets abducted. But of all those great shots in LA Confidential of someone on one side of those mirrors, I think my favorite is the first one that happens, where you see Exley on one side being spoken to by, I guess he's like a lawyer of some kind.
He's like someone in between. I
Yeah.
can't remember exactly
I
his point.
assumed he was also a police captain. But
Yeah, of some rank.
Yeah.
It's the line that guy says, "Ace him at the grand jury tomorrow." That scene, where you see that Exley is watching on from the side of the mirror where he's reflected, and I thought it was operating a little bit similarly to that shot in The Silence of the Lambs, where kind of what that shot is telling you is that like the person seeing the reflection holds a little more power in that moment.
Mhm.
In kind of all the scenes where that happens, where the person seeing the reflection, their own reflection, is the one with the power in that scene.
It's kind of undercut though right away because the guy
Yeah.
gives him the glasses line again. He's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Lose the
you gotta
glasses.
lose the glasses.
I think he looks good in the glasses.
I think
he
does
it's
too.
a good look for him.
I want to mention one other scene involving the two-way mirror. Exley gives him the plan. He's like, hey, why don't you do this? Bring Jack Vincennes in here, threaten to take away or tell him he's got to lose his consultant role. Watching Jack Vincennes, when he knows that
Yeah.
he got played, he just looks over
He
to the
looks
mirror.
at the mirror.
knows.
Yeah,
He knows. And this time was the first time I was like, oh, he's been behind the mirror.
Ah.
Like he's
Yeah.
probably done this himself.
Yeah,
He knows that that's where they go in order to oversee and just
Touche.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love that. It's so subtle, but It just works, man. Really works.
And similarly with, little looks between characters that say a lot. Like when you watch the movie the second time, you see this look in that scene outside of the liquor store very early on in the movie. There's this look exchange between Stensland and Meeks.
Oh, yeah.
Or-
You don't know to look
Yeah.
for it the first time.
Yeah. Those characters are only there very briefly, and you don't think they're going to be big. But you know to look for it the second time, and that speaks volumes too.
Right.
For
right.
sure.
My little moment like that actually occurs during the credits,
Oh, I know which thing you're going to point to.
which is the parade
Oh,
at
yeah.
the end. And it's basically sums up the entire philosophy of the movie, which is you have this parade going on and you have, getting all the cheers. You have the wonderful, incorruptible Hopalong Cassidy riding on his horse. And then right behind him, you have the DA and the police chief.
Yeah.
Oh,
walking.
yeah.
Like that, I just love that. The most corrupted people, basically, that there are,
Right.
are following this image of incorruptibility.
Mm.
And to me, that just summarizes the whole film, in 5 seconds. Because that's all it is. It's like really like a 5-second sequence. to
Very
start
brief.
in.
Yeah.
One of those guys, Brett Chase, who's the actor who is being advised by Jack Vincennes
Right.
throughout the movie, is played by an actor I couldn't place him at first, named Matt McCoy. But I realized the place that I knew him from was this one episode of Seinfeld where he appears. That one episode is, for my money, one of the funniest on that show, which is Serenity Now.
Serenity Now, of course. Yeah.
And he plays like this guy that Frank Costanza supposedly hires in quotations to help him sell computers out of his garage to give George something to compete against. I feel like you see his face once and you can't forget it.
I feel like he looks kind of like Anthony Perkins in this.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Another closeted actor from that era, interestingly. Yeah. And the district attorney budding up with him as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Subtext. Yeah. It's interesting too that there's like a lot of like supporting characters who are gay in this movie, and that it's showing some of the greater diversity of the world. It's not, this is not that diverse a movie, but like in terms of representation, but it's just suggesting that it's not all this clean-cut image that the police department tries to create.
Right.
Speaking of those gay characters, we've said nothing of Simon Baker yet.
Yeah.
In what I believe is his first film appearance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He plays Matt Reynolds.
Matt
right?
Reynolds,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Simon Baker Denny, as he's credited then.
The little detail that I enjoyed is that at the very end, when we see Lynn with Bud in the car, her hair is totally different.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually really important because, the way that her hair is styled through most of the film is just to make her look like Veronica Lake. Like that's Veronica Lake's like very classic Hollywood soft waves. And her hair is much shorter at the end. And, a little bit of time has probably passed, but I think that's a way of her saying like, I am embodying the person I want to be. I'm no longer embodying someone else. I'm making my own choices,
Right.
like cutting my hair.
Right. I'm not somebody else's fantasy.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great.
Did you have anything?
I have one more. So I love it. It's just a really wonderful acting choice, I think. The scene in the diner when Captain Dudley Smith gives Bud an opportunity to be a cop again, right? You can do this, but no questions asked. I need you to be an enforcer. He's hiding his gun and his badge under, I think, a newspaper or something. And the way in which Bud just so quickly grabs it back and puts it back on him tells you everything about his character. It tells you how much being a cop was part of his identity and how badly he wants that back. I love that. I love that detail.
One other little scene or moment within a scene that I noticed specifically on the second viewing, as this chapter in the middle of the movie, when the police department has wrongfully accused and interrogated these 3 African American men who they are framing as the Night Owl murderers. After Bud White has broken into the house where where a bunch of these men have imprisoned this woman, and he sets her free, Exley confronts him about his tactics there in that scene. And there's a moment where where Bud White is approaching Exley while they are speaking, and you see Dudley Smith's face right in between them, watching them.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. The camera even like comes forward just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
It's so
To
nice.
frame it right there.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a reverse of like that Citizen Kane type shot where you have like two people in the foreground discussing someone in the background who's oblivious to it. Now you have two people in the foreground who are oblivious to the person in the background.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's one moment of visual poetry that I thought was genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the movie is pretty expertly directed. Like it
Yeah.
it feels like it moves so nicely.
And I read on the Wikipedia too that the intention for it visually was to have it be shot like all other films of its time, even though it's something that is a period piece.
Right.
So there's like this good balance of the retro and the modern in it too.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is, I am just a huge sucker for the opening narration. It pulls you right in. And I love how in that moment, the Danny DeVito character, Sid Hudgens, he says, LA is, it's like selling an image and they're selling it through movies, radio, and television. And I love how literally like 5 minutes later, when you actually see his character at looks like a rap party or something for the TV show, he's talking to Vincennes. He's like, dude, I've got 36,000 subscribers and climbing. And he literally says, he's like, I want to expand this to radio and television. I love that. I know that was something that Curtis Hanson was really drawn to when it came to the movie, and how the creation of the misleading image is just like running through this whole movie with everybody. I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, are we ready for Unlikely Shared Universe now?
Absolutely.
I
think so.
We were just talking about Sid Hudgens. So may I parlay that into a speculation about his fate?
Well, I want to know if Madeline knows.
I know. Did you write it down?
I wrote it down, so I want to hear what it is, and then I can reveal whether or not I was correct.
Really, I should actually saying a speculation of his fate is erroneous, because we know that in LA Confidential. That sadly, he is someone who meets his demise at the hands of Dudley Smith, like so many others. So it's not a speculation of his fate, but of his progeny. So there's one very memorable scene in LA Confidential where we see Sid Hudgens himself on one side of one of those two-way mirrors, documenting this tryst between Ed Exley and Lynn Bracken. What if this is an instinct that is shared by some offspring he does not know about too? What if, out of the bounds of the narrative of...
I think I know this too. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
What if outside the bounds of the narrative that we are told on screen in LA Confidential, that Sid Hudgens has had a tryst of his own at some point with some woman who he did not stay in touch with, who then became pregnant, carried her child to term, and raised him basically without a father. This woman is in LA at the time, and the kid is born there, but over time they move a little bit north up the West Coast. And as she tries to raise him, this kid really does feel a little bit listless throughout his life. And he's not really sure exactly what the problem is. And you can say the lack of a father figure is an important detail here, but he's not really sure. And so after he has come of age, he decides to check himself into a local institution in Salem, Oregon, where, he mostly just kind of carries out his days. He's not really sure what is going to happen for him, but, he's just hopeful that some solution will come along eventually. And perhaps that solution appears to be, for a little while, this notable presence who enters this institution, kind of a raconteur type of character, who shakes things up, much to the chagrin of their very strict, overbearing nurse. And then one day decides to take this cohort out on a boat ride. And he leads them out of the institution. And then as this guy who leads everyone goes off to a corner of the boat for a tryst of his own, then the instinct bestowed upon this child by his father is awakened when he just has to peep what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And this child has been raised under the family name of Martini.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all figured it out now.
We did, and I figured it out 20 minutes ago.
There it is.
Yes.
You win.
That's,
Well done, Madeline.
not only a movie, but a particular instance in that movie that we've discussed before.
I love that that's how you connected it, because I was kind of like, wait, how's he going to do this?
Yes.
Because obviously we see Sid Hutchins meet his end.
Yeah.
Progeny, Madeline.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it is.
I had mentioned that I had two of these, one of them which is direct and one of them which was progeny. So, but
all right. Do you want to?
no, I'll wait. I want to hear.
Of course,
Madeline's.
we haven't said it directly yet, but in case anyone's wondering, we're talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
And I'm still team Nurse Ratched is not a top 5 AFI villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
After we
She's
had
more
that discussion, I
complicated.
think I agree with that too.
Matt, you're giving a grimace here. Are you familiar? Are you aware of that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that she's considered way up there, and I have a little more sympathy for that. I still think she's villainous, but not
Yeah.
not Hannibal
you
Lecter
would-
villainous.
You would have been
Exactly.
you would have been very welcome on our
Yeah.
podcast when we
No,
had
I
that
agree with
conversation.
that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cool.
I would like to propose an alternate. You said that we saw Sid Hutchins meet his fate,
Mhm.
and maybe we did. I mean, he seemed pretty dead, but
He's not. He was only
maybe not.
nearly dead.
Your friend is mostly dead.
We know that he is at the helm of Hush Hush magazine, and he's probably been in LA for a while, considering the amount of influence he has in the community. But when and how do we think he first came to LA? I think he's been building his connections in LA for many years, ever since he passed through the city with a traveling circus. Perhaps his circus ran into some legal trouble at the time, leading him to meet his future confidant, Jack Vincennes. But over time, he becomes entranced with the celebrity culture of LA, and Hush Hush magazine is born. And so he leaves his circus in the capable hands of his underlings and moves to LA to build his gossip empire. We see his eventual end in LA Confidential, or did we? Turns out Sid Hutchins, he's a werewolf. So the very next night is a full moon, and in his transformation, he is miraculously healed.
Of course, he is.
Of course. Yeah.
And so to keep his secret, he has to obviously escape from LA.
Like Snake
Just
Plissken?
like Kurt Russell.
There you go.
And returns to his circus and vows to never travel through LA again.
Gotcha.
But perhaps he'll
Like,
make his way to Alabama
Yeah.
to go to an old friend's funeral at some point.
I had a feeling you were going to do this one.
Cool.
Yeah. It's Big Fish.
It's Big Fish.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And this is a movie.
They were all there. I just wasn't right there with you. Yeah.
This is a movie that I think I had said before on this podcast that I was not allowed to watch PG-13 movies growing up.
Oh.
This came out like right before I turned 13, and so my parents made an exception, but made me leave the room for one scene. And for years, I had no idea what I missed. I only just rewatched this last year, like 20 years later.
What'd you miss?
I missed elephant shit.
Oh, come on.
Which
Yeah.
that was kind of what I thought happened. That was
Yeah.
always in the back of my mind. Like, for some reason, I filled in the gaps. But for many years, I was not entirely sure.
There we go.
Fair enough.
I want you to start, and then you can sandwich. me
I'll
on
do
this
the one that is my linear one, and
Okay.
then you do yours, and then I'll do my progeny one is the last, I guess.
Perfect.
Okay, so we know that LA Confidential is taking place in, early to mid 1950s. So end of the film, we see Lynn Bracken and Bud together in a car driving off, to Arizona
Yeah.
for their life together. Well, they live there for a while and things are fine, but, Bud is on temporary disability, recovering from his injuries and whatever else. Money's not so great. And eventually, Lynn Bracken, to support them, has to revert to what it is she did before that she's very good at. Bud is very angry because he doesn't want her to do it. They fall apart.
Okay.
They're no longer together.
Gotcha.
End of story there. He's going to start a new life for himself as far away from her as possible. So where does he go? To the New York, New Jersey area. He goes to, specifically, Newark.
I think I know what this is.
Becomes a cop,
I think I know
shows
what this
some talents, is moved to undercover work, shows a lot more talent.
is. Yeah.
So good, in fact, that they're going to change his name so that he's not easily detectable from his undercover work.
Right.
So his name goes from the, double Wendell White, double W,
Right. Yeah.
to Richie Roberts, RR.
Oh, RR. Yeah.
Mhm.
And he becomes top undercover drug enforcement operative. What a surprise, having been so familiar with Mickey Cohen's operations in LA and Dudley Smith's operations, as a corrupt cop. He specifically assigned in the early 1970s, his career being on a very good track, to take on Frank Lucas,
Yes.
the biggest Harlem and New York, New Jersey area heroin dealer. I think we may know what movie we're talking about
Definitely.
here.
Yeah.
When you said Newark, I got it.
And he eventually takes down the corrupt officers of the DEA with a wrecking ball,
He does.
using Lucas himself
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
And the movie is American Gangster.
There you go.
I still
Yeah.
have to see
This
that.
is the Russell Crowe Denzel Washington pairing
Mhm.
that corrected.
Virtuosity. Oh my God, did it ever? Thank God for this movie.
I know.
You're so right about that.
Yes.
But to me, that's actually even like a
No.
plausible film that could happen.
Totally.
I could see it. I like this.
When you said it was plausible, I thought you were going to do The Nice Guys.
Oh, I didn't even see that movie. I couldn't have done
It's
it.
just the surface level thing with that is that it's like it's set in the 70s and also has Russell Crowe being like kind of a tough guy enforcer who's a little bit older. And but that's, the fate there is if Bud White decides to go back to LA.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Which I could see why he wouldn't want to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I'll jump in and do this one. So we have seen in LA Confidential that the district attorney Lowe is pretty connected to the entertainment business. And he seems to have cozied up with the producers of Badge of Honor. As we see, there's some kind of a party on the set of the show, maybe a fundraiser for his reelection. And I believe that Attorney Lowe actually has a pretty long history with entertainment law before he became a DA for the city. Because only a short while before, and I mean really like a couple years, Lowe was actually working in the studio system as an attorney for a movie studio. He did have a slightly different name. He went by Kevin Bannerman, which we're just gonna have to accept here.
Okay.
But he was there representing writers for the studio, and one of these writers was a guy named Peter Appleton, and he was suspected at the time of having communist connections. District Attorney Lowe, aka Kevin Bannerman, was actually quite kind, provided very competent legal counsel for Peter, and Peter really needed it because upon hearing that he lost his job as a writer with the studio and the movie he was working on got scrapped from production, he got drunk and he drove his car off a bridge and lost his memory, wound up in a small town where he was mistaken for a war hero that everyone thought had died. Do we know what movie this is? Have I stumped you guys?
No. I feel like I'm going to know it once you say it, but I can't.
I kind of feel the same way.
Did anybody see The Majestic?
No.
No.
With Jim Carrey.
With Jim Carrey.
But
yeah.
this concept, I was like, this
Yeah.
sounds familiar.
Yeah. So District Attorney Lowe is played by Ron Rifkin, who is like one of those guys. He always shows up as like a politician, as some high-ranking dude, and he plays the attorney that Peter Appleton, played by Jim Carrey, uses when he has to go to court. And the time frame is extraordinarily close, like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
That's another one that feels like it might as well just be accurate.
It very
Yeah.
well could be.
Now I'm going to do this one. Now, if you want to excise this, feel free to excise it.
Go
But-
for it. You're good.
Okay. In the spirit of, again, going with progeny rather than direct, but also in the spirit of LA Confidential of intertwining something real
Mm.
with, fictional characters.
Okay.
Lieutenant Exley is now newly minted double recipient of the Medal of Valor.
Valor, yeah.
And he's chief of detectives because all the other detectives are dead at this point.
Yeah, true.
Of LA, and he goes on to have a storied and controversial career. He eventually becomes LA's police chief, and he institutes in his capacity as police chief various anti-corruption regulations and reforms. while simultaneously still willing to bend and occasionally break his own rules on the sly to benefit himself.
Okay.
That's what he
Sounds
does.
like him.
Yeah, sounds like what he's learned to do.
Using the intel gathered from his investigation of heroin and real estate magnate Pierce Patchett, using what he's learned about that,
Right.
Exley, over the years, quietly invests in various freeway-related projects, sometimes using money relocated from incarcerated mobsters and drug dealers to increase his holdings. Better that he should use it for real estate investment than let drug dealers have the money.
Right. Yeah. That's sounds like a corrupt person trying to justify their
Right, of
actions.
course. But he eventually becomes a multimillionaire because of his investments.
Okay.
Upon his retirement, after nearly 3 decades of service, Exley marries Barbara Wayland, the daughter of prominent real-life physicist and author Jack Wayland. Jack Wayland is an author of scientific books, science fiction books, and romance novels.
Didn't think the third one was coming. That's cool.
Yeah, I know it seems like a kind of a weird thing, but he's a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, and he writes some, very sweet books.
Got it. Okay.
They have several children, but the marriage doesn't last, and he is estranged from his family, and he becomes somewhat reclusive after the separation from his wife, and his history sort of fades away after that, but not his family's. The children are cut off from their narcissistic and egotistical father, and they drop the Exley name.
Okay.
And adopt their loving mother's maiden name of Wayland. Upon Exley's death, he leaves his fortune to the one child that he had, who chose to remain in contact with him when everyone else in his family abandoned him.
Okay.
That would be his son, Charles.
Okay.
Now, you know where I'm going with this, maybe.
Charles Wayland.
Charles, blessed with his father's ruthless determination and his mother's genetic intelligence, uses his newfound wealth to found the Wayland Corporation, and eventually becomes one of the wealthiest men in the world. He dies during a mysterious Antarctic expedition in 2004, but his direct descendant, Bishop Wayland, takes over as CEO with great success, and in 2045, Bishop's son, Peter Wayland, assumes the mantle. Peter is as ruthlessly driven as his great-grandfather, to the point that he wants to cheat death. Much like his own father, he turns his attention to the stars, where Exley's stars were earthbound. In Hollywood, his are the stars in the sky. Based on findings of 2 very radical archaeologists who claim to have discovered the extraterrestrial location of ancestors of humanity, he builds a ship and goes to meet them on Prometheus.
I knew Prometheus was coming.
Yeah.
Charles Wayland was also in Alien versus Predator.
Okay.
He's the Lance Henriksen character.
Okay. Nice.
But Guy Pearce plays Peter Wayland
right
in Prometheus.
Right. I was very impressed, by the way.
That was good.
Way to tie that all together. Very
That was
nice.
very good.
Well, do we have any final thoughts we'd like to say about LA Confidential?
Glad to finally have seen it. I think that maybe, I think one mark of a good noir is that you can pick up a lot more on the second time when you tie together all of these complicated associations that exist in a film like it. But I feel like it's especially true for LA Confidential. The second viewing really was helpful. And I think that, I went from thinking this is like a serviceable, good neo-noir the first time to thinking, wow, this might just be a masterpiece of the form in the second time. Glad to finally have seen it. In large part, we're discussing it because of your enthusiasm about it, Matt. So thank you for being here and bringing that to us.
My pleasure.
Totally.
Definitely.
For me, I think the only thing to add is that I think this has reignited my desire to go further into the noir genre more broadly and neo-noir, because as I said up top, I feel like I am missing a lot of the big ones. So I've just really enjoyed the journey with this movie, and just like Julian said, watching it twice really unlocked a lot for me. So I enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to keep going through the genre.
Yeah.
Cool.
Another thought that just goes along with all that is that I feel like in this day and age, I think very critically about any movie I watch that foregrounds police. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of movies, whether it's noir or outside of that genre, a lot of movies that handle such characters well will kind of suggest that they're not necessarily on the side of these characters, that they are observing them, and they may not offer like the absolute solution to the problems that exist in the systems that they are a part of, but they at least, they consider them with integrity. And I feel like even if we haven't figured out or implemented the solutions yet as a society, I feel like movies like this can affirm to me as a viewer that other people are thinking about this too. It's a similar sensation that I get to watching something like The Wire. It gives me some hope that if, the minds making and creating these films and the viewers can come together, maybe there is a more peaceful future on the other side of this.
Wow.
Well,
That's really well put.
Thanks.
In the research for this, we talked about how this was a book before written by James Ellroy, how it is like a maximalist kind of story. There's so many characters, so many threads going on. Initially, they were trying to option it as a television show on one of the kind of networks. And I think it was as early as the early 90s. I love that this is a movie. I feel like if it became a television show, I mean, a lot of television shows have been done very well with this kind of narrative thrust. But I love how it is a movie. I love that it is really complex, but in its own way, it's really very neat. So impressed by a lot of the performances, all the characterizations. I don't know, man, just really drawn into it. The last thing I'll say too is I went and dug through my old collection of DVDs, and apparently I bought this a long time ago on DVD, and I hadn't seen it in at least 15 years.
Wow.
Thank you again, Matt, for
pleasure.
suggesting this, and I was able to dig this out and remind myself, oh yeah, there was a moment when I really did like this movie enough to buy it on DVD.
It's been a few years for me also until this week of seeing it, honestly. And I'm glad that when I watched it this week, that it held up as much, if not more, as I've always considered this movie to be. Everything about it, again, the music, the camera work, the acting, the storytelling, the fact that they were able to take such a sprawling novel and find the threads that would work best in the movie and that they work so well is amazing to me, and I just love it. My final thought on this, though, which I took maybe a little bit more now, was the take on stardom itself, on Hollywood stardom, and how back in this era, when this movie was depicting, scandals were something that the actors themselves were trying to cover up. And you needed Sid Hutchins and Hush Hush to out everybody's, indiscretions. Yeah. And now here we are, 2025, and literally people are creating their own scandals, outing themselves and selling the story.
Yeah.
Forget Hush Hush. They just want to make their own TikTok channel. And you have people taking advantage of their own failings to make money. And it's such a radical, flip of a coin here to what we've become, versus what was depicted then. It's almost quaint. Looking now at a magazine like Hush Hush. Yeah. Even into the 90s, into the early 2000s, you had the National Enquirer and things like that. They're all obsolete now.
Yeah, it's true.
Quite a different world. And my last thought is, if you didn't see it, The Grifters. The Grifters.
Yeah.
Yep. See it.
Very cool. Well, it's January of 2025 right now. It's effing cold out.
It's so cold.
And thank you for braving the elements to come out here. Thank you for hanging tough. I just want to ask, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on my website, which is www.stilettobandnyc.com. My Instagram page is the same, Stiletto Band NYC. That's where you can primarily find my goings on, musically and otherwise. And you can find me in the streets of New York playing piano and singing until my voice craps out, as much as I can, doing my dueling pianos and all that various stuff. So.
Yeah. And as I said before, if you ever get the privilege of seeing Matt do his thing with music, it really is something else. You are an incredible encyclopedia of music. On top of film, it really is a real treat to get to listen to you play and to have you here, man. Thank you.
Likewise, my friend.
Yeah, Thank you.
Should we say what we're going to discuss next in this cycle about supporting performances?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm excited for this next conversation because coming up next, if you're familiar with our order of different episode types, coming up next is our two shot, where we take two films and compare them. And I'm very excited because this is going to be the first time that on this podcast that we take an original film and its remake.
Yeah.
And well, if you're thinking about originals, remakes, supporting performances, maybe you've already put it together, but that would be two films where the performer of the same character was awarded a trophy 60 years apart. And that is both the original and the more recent version of West Side Story.
Yeah.
Very excited. I have seen the original West Side Story. I have not seen the remake yet.
You're
I
gonna
actually
love it.
didn't know that. Yeah.
Yes, I have not seen it yet. And
You're in good hands. I'd be
Yeah.
shocked if you didn't enjoy this film.
Yeah.
And of course, the two supporting actors or actresses that we are talking about are Rita Moreno in the original West Side Story, and then Ariana DeBose in the more recent one.
Yeah. Rita Moreno makes an appearance in the more recent one
Yes,
too,
exactly.
but as a different
you will
character.
Get to see her as well.
Ariana DeBose does not make an appearance in the original.
No.
Maybe, if you want to work like some George Lucas,
progeny.
like George Lucas Star Wars prequels type magic and insert her there. Maybe.
Very cool. Well, in addition to this podcast, you guys can follow us on Instagram, and if TikTok is still around, you can do that. But we are at Sleepless Cinematic Pod, all one word. You can also contact us via email. We keep saying this, but honestly, we'd love to hear from you guys out there. Just putting it out there. Write us. We will get back to you. And you can do that at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. I am not on Letterboxd. It looks like a lot of fun. I know you guys are, though.
Yes, perhaps in this 2025 year, we can get you on Letterboxd.
Yeah,
We've been saying that for a while.
But in the meantime, you can follow me, Madeline, at patronessofcats.
And you can follow me, Julian, at Julian_Barthold. It's just my last name there. If you're listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. If this is the second or third or 30th time you've listened to us, thank you for sticking with us. We have really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please write us a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots and tell a friend to tell a friend about the Sleepless Cinematic podcast. That helps too.
Well, I'm about to say something that directly contradicts what we've just done, but this has been Off the Record, on the QT, and very hush hush.